Always great catching up with my next guest, and glad to see him back in action. He's going to be taking on Chris Gutierrez, UFC Fight Night, April 15th. It's Pedro Munhoz back here on the program. Pedro, how are you?
Doing good, James. Thanks for having me.
Hey, of course. Pleasure's all mine, man. It's been a bit, right? We haven't seen you since July. I was at that last fight, actually, way back last year. What's been the reason for the layoff and why we haven't seen you in action?
Yeah, we're actually starting negotiation again back at UFC in November, but it was a couple of the fights that didn't go through, and that was it. So, in the meanwhile, I was just training, helping a lot of the fighters here in American Top Team, and it was good to take some time off, and not off, but like off from competition, training every week with a bunch of guys here. But it was good, like not to push like too extreme to a training camp, so can be able to do my training camp to my next fight being free from injury and kind of stuff. So I kind of like it was a good feeling for the body.
By the sounds of it, the time off was needed, to heal some injuries, to take your time and take that next fight and everything else. So you kind of feel like the time off was good for you?
Yeah, I was ready to compete before, but it was kind of good. That took a little bit more time, so can be 100% healed for injuries and all that.
I know your last fight was a while ago, like I mentioned, in July against Sean O'Malley. There was a bit of controversy there, right, in terms of what happened and it ending in that no contest. I was just curious what you made of his comments after the fight saying that he dominated, because I think most people felt like, it was a close fight, or even some people feel like you were in control.
Yeah, I think the scorecards I had me winning first round, second round, the fight was interrupted like probably like a minute before the round ended. So yeah, that it's a lot of people being saying a bunch of stuff, all over, and in reality, just the comments.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. You have to ignore that stuff. What type of feedback did you have after that fight? Because again, you mentioned having some success in the first round. You mentioned the negativity. I'm sure there was a lot of positive feedback as well, saying, "Hey, man, you did quite well against Sean."
Yeah, definitely be able to fight with a guy that has like that long reach.
Mhm.
Having fought a guy that fought tall guys, but like Sean, I think it was like the unique, like that much difference and not in size, but like length and overall, it was a really good. It felt good. I didn't feel that he much stronger, than but definitely like long and fast. But no, the couple punches that he was able to connect, I didn't feel impressed by any means. But yeah, man.
Yeah.
So we took a different path, and he fought Yan right after that. And I guess right now he's gonna be the next one, the title defense. So let's see.
We'll see what happens. Did you watch his fight with Petr Yan? And if so, did you think he won? Some people felt like he didn't.
I did. I did watch. I watched that fight. I gotta watch it again, more particular right now to see the scorecards. But what matters is that's what the judges give it that night.
Yeah.
But it was a good fight. It was a back and forth. To be
Mhm.
honest with you, the only time I watch, I had a Yan winning just by a little bit, not
Mhm.
much advantage. But I guess I was wrong.
Yeah. No, for sure. And just sort of one thing, sort of before this fight, I know you had mentioned in the past about maybe dropping down to flyweight, but obviously they gave you O'Malley, and you're like, well, I got to take this fight because that's a big fight. Is that door closed right now as far as you dropping down, or do you see you potentially in the future going down to 125?
No. I guess that my natural weight's like 156,
Okay. Yeah,
157,
it's a big cut.
so my natural weight, like what I say by that is like training, eating healthy, eating clean like I always do, and training every day. So I think it would be something that I see so many fighters, especially like at the bantamweight division, like TJ, a lot of the guys going down division, Cory, Gabrin, some of the guys that put a lot of effort and put the body to extreme, and being a point that no not performing well. So I guess the it doesn't it doesn't prove anything. You know, you be stronger on that,
Yeah. No,
and
fair.
you know, it is definitely a work that I have to put in also, to be able to make it at 135. You know, it's the weight cut for me that goes smooth every single time, but you know, that's like for being diet for like 3 months, let's say, to be able to cut down to 147. That's what I'm weighing right now, 148, to go down to 135 on the week of April 15th.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. It is kind of a tough cut to make that
Yeah.
for sure. Let's talk about Chris Gutierrez. A really exciting matchup on paper. Obviously, Chris is no stranger to having his fight of the nights or getting knockouts. Just stylistically, how do you look at this one? Because your stand-up's very good as well too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I see the a match a little bit like similar than Sean O'Malley. The stands, you know, they both fighting both stands, and they exchange technique standing up. They're not much of wrestler or grappler, you know. So yeah, and for me, it's I like to engage, you know, and on the striking and standing up, and Colonel Chris is a smart fighter, you know, well rounded. So definitely prepared for this fight, being training and focus, you know, on the strategy. And yeah, man. So in UFC, especially at top 10, top 15, we don't have that much. We don't have that much. We don't have it all. You know, we don't have it all. Like all the fighters that we have in the rankings there, they are all beasts. You know, they all very high in skills and well-rounded fighters, and Chris is one of them. And that's what I like to fight against, and you know, and that's what I do, knowing that every single time to assign to a fight, it's, you know, it doesn't matter who's gonna be, but I'm gonna definitely, you know, um, put in my best effort right there to finish all my opponents.
Training camp. You're at a big gym, American Top Team, one of the best in the world. Who are some of the main training partners you've been working with leading into this fight?
Many guys, not no nobody like in a specific, you know, having my coaches, Ivan Anderson, Conan. But basically like a lot of the guys, you know, we've been training on a daily basis, you know, guys that fights in another organization, got fighters that fight in UFC, you know, Adriano Moraes, like I mentioned before, he's a good friend of mine, training partner. uh Marlon Moraes, you know, we're kind of like training all the time. We have the same coaches. The training that we schedule to do is very close to one another. And many other fighters right now. The names doesn't come to my mind right now, but
Let me.
we have
Here's
just a
a
lot
fighter
of
I was
them.
wondering about just because he's in your weight class. Do you ever work at all with Danny Sabatello?
Oh yeah, Danny's also another guy that we train
He's a
all the
beast,
time.
man. His pace and
Yes,
everything. He's great.
yeah,
So
yeah. I'm glad you brought him up. So Danny is the guy that we train together always.
okay,
Now
good. So
that,
I'm a mind reader. That's good.
yeah, Danny, we have just a lot of guys here at
Yeah,
ATT.
no, I know. We'd be here all day if we named all your training partners. I was just curious if there were some guys maybe you work with a little bit more. I
Yeah,
guess the only
Danny.
downside to this fight is that they couldn't have done it a week earlier. You could have gone to Miami to fight instead of Kansas City, right?
Yeah, that was something that I was hoping for.
Mhm.
At the beginning, they announced New York City. Remember that?
That's right.
And
Yeah.
then a few weeks went by, and then they announced Miami. You know, and I fought it a week later, but it is okay. You know, it's a
Yeah.
part of
At
the.
least you have a good fight, right? So
Yeah, it's a
that's the
part
main
of.
thing.
Yeah.
Sounds like the weight cut's going well. Like you said, you've had lots of time. You've had a full camp. So, I mean, you've never missed weight. So it sounds like everything's A-okay for the weight cut.
Oh, everything's good, man.
Yeah, that's great. And your corner, who will be in the cage with you that night?
It's gonna be Conan. It's gonna be Ivan, and it's gonna be Anderson.
Okay, there we go. And
Yeah.
Chris Gutierrez, tough guy to finish. He's on a nice winning streak. How do you see this fight unfolding?
Yeah. He's the guy that, you know, he's fan throwing a lot of the kicks. You know, he's not a dog fight. A little bit that the kind of characteristic that I like to do in a fight. You know, he fights strategic and is smart, let's say. I'm kind of like one that I like to bring fire into the octagon, and I will be doing the same thing in a smart way. And yeah, and I can't wait for April 15th.
It's going to be great. Obviously, at the top of your division, we have the bantamweight title fight. Your old opponent, Aljamain Sterling, going to be fighting Henry Cejudo. Who do you give the edge to in that fight? Because obviously, Cejudo's got the wrestling, but he's been off for a number of years, and Sterling is, obviously been on quite the roll since winning the title from Petr Yan.
Yeah, no, definitely. Cejudo is it's a great fighter. The result has been showing that, and all the stuff that he has been doing in sport. But for this match in specific, I see advantage over Aljamain Sterling for the size, for the amount of fighters he has been lately. Didn't take that much damage, and to be longer and the pace, the cardio wise, and all that. I think that's gonna make a lot of difference in that bout. So
Yeah,
I see it'll be like Aljamain Sterling
yeah, that makes sense.
having an advantage of that fight.
What about your contract? How many more fights do you have left, or like what's sort of your latest with your UFC contract?
Yes, I renew my fight. I renew my contract in the fight before Sean or that one.
Oh,
So
cool.
I
Okay, yeah.
probably
So a couple more left. Great.
So I probably have like 2, 3 more left.
Awesome.
And
What did you think of Cory Sandhagen's win last weekend over Chito Vera? Did you happen to see it?
yeah, it was definitely a good match. Chito is very durable, very tough, strong fighter, and Cory, it's a taller guy that uses a lot of volumes and well-rounded, and keeping getting better every single fight. So it's definitely a good fight to watch, and I see he's right there knocking on for the title before. But we have like another guys like Merab and Umar right now. Those two guys that has been.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. What do you think? I mean, it's not confirmed, but what do you think of the UFC trying to match Umar with Merab, with the fact that Umar doesn't have a single ranked win, and they want to give him Merab, who I would think is close to the title?
Yeah, I guess a lot of people are avoiding to fight Umar,
Mhm.
and and for the fact that right now the Merab is the one that is accepting fighting anyone. I can't see that fight displaying for sure.
Yeah, you could see. Yeah, you think it makes sense just because no one wants to fight Umar, and then Merab will
Yeah,
fight anyone.
it does, especially the ways that Umar has been finishing his opponents.
Yeah.
It's an
Okay.
impressive way. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Him fighting in number 2, number 3 guys. I don't see why not.
Yeah, and then there's that obviously the issue at the top. If Sterling wins over Cejudo, then what happens with Merab and Sterling, right? Because they won't fight each other. I guess Sterling said he might move up to 145, so we'll see.
Um, the best way that I could see that title contender displaying is will be Umar fighting Sean O'Malley or Merab, and they need to display better between Cory Sandhagen and Merab. I get it that Merab doesn't want to go to fight for the title for the fact that the Aljamain is his friend.
Mhm.
I probably would do the same. But having Sean Malley waiting all this time to get the title next, it's kind of like, it just showed that, UFC really want this fight to happen. And
Yeah.
we see guys like Sandhagen, which he had his opportunity also to fight for title twice, I guess, or maybe once, I don't remember. And Umar just, being a killer and have it shown right there, waiting all this time to be the next contender. I think that for me, it sounds kind of a little bit unfair. And if you want to wait that long, you must be fighting before, but it's just how I think.
Yep. No, a lot going on in your division. Before we get out of here, how's fatherhood going? How's I'm sure you get to spend more time with your kids being off this long too, right?
Yeah, for sure. She's she's 9 years old. My daughter,
Wow, she's getting old.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
she's yeah, she's growing up. She's like sports a lot, playing soccer, doing jiu-jitsu, and we're living the life. We can do, we're doing the best that we can do.
Yeah, that's great. And making time for interviews, Pedro. I really appreciate it, my man. It's UFC Fight Night, April 15th. If there's anyone you'd like to thank before we get out of here, any sponsors or any social media, I'll give you the last word.
That's fine. I don't have nothing to say.